Well, is Melania voting for Kamala Harris? Melania has a new book. It's coming out this Tuesday, and she completely undermines her husband's pro-life stance. In her new book, Melania gives a full-throated endorsement of a woman's right to choose, which suggests that she's going to vote next month to enshrine in Florida's Constitution a woman's right to choose, something that goes against everything her husband, as well as the entire GOP, especially down in Florida, everything they oppose. So why would Melania, 1 month before Election Day, be so brazenly disloyal to her husband? Where's her loyalty to Donald? It's not like he had unprotected sex with a porn star just 1 week after she gave him a son. Where's the loyalty? I'll have more on this later. Who knows? Maybe this is three-dimensional dementia that Donald is playing, where he's trying to win over women by having his soon-to-be ex-wife claim she's pro-choice. Who knows? I'll have more on it in a couple of minutes. Dockworkers from New York to Texas are returning to work as their strike is temporarily suspended until January 15th, 2025, as they work on a new 6-year contract. The Longshoremen's Union is demanding a nearly 70% raise spread out over the life of their contract. Many feared a prolonged strike would create a massive supply chain issue that would prevent J.D. Vance from receiving the container ship of eyeliner he'll need between now and Election Day. Hurricane Helene turned out to be the third deadliest storm since the early 1950s, when we began keeping track of hurricanes. Helene is now deadlier than Hurricane Sandy in 2012 and deadlier than Ian in 2022. I'll have more on this later on. The Israel-Hamas war goes into its second year next week. On October 7th, Hamas invaded Israel, killing 1,200 people, raping and injuring hundreds of others, and taking 251 hostage, including women, children, and senior citizens. Israel responded by launching a retaliatory invasion that included an attempt to permanently destroy Hamas. So far, they haven't. Nearly a year later, as many as 41,000 Palestinians are dead in Gaza. The war has now spread to Lebanon, which fired rockets into northern Israel immediately after October 7th to show solidarity with Hamas. Iran denied funding the Hamas attack, but at the same time works closely with Hamas. Hezbollah in Lebanon is funded by Iran, and after Israel took out Hezbollah's top leadership last week, Iran responded by launching hundreds of missiles into Israel this week. Iran also funds the Houthi rebels in Yemen, who have also begun firing rockets into Israel. Israel responded by firing rockets into Yemen. Almost 1 year later, what we're seeing is Iran, a predominantly Shiite nation, working with Hezbollah, its surrogate army in Lebanon. Iran is also working with the Houthis in Yemen in the Houthis' war with Saudi Arabia, and Iran is working with Hamas in Gaza in Hamas's war with Israel. All of this going on while Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and several other Arab countries silently side with and assist Israel, especially in fending off the attacks from Iran. The sense is Iran does not want this war to escalate, and neither does Lebanon. The sense is Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, wants to settle all of this once and for all, especially after being humiliated on October 7th. He obviously wants to prolong this war to avoid accountability for how he let the Hamas invasion take place on his watch. The sense is a majority of the Israeli people are not happy with Benjamin Netanyahu. The sense is the majority of Lebanese civilians wish Hezbollah would close up shop and stop interfering with their nation's sovereignty, their nation's politics, and their nation's military. The sense is the millions of Syrian refugees wish Hezbollah would stay out of Syria. The sense is most Iranians don't want Hezbollah relocating to Iran. And because Hezbollah remains a successful political and paramilitary organization in Lebanon, the leaders of Hezbollah, whoever they are this morning, have no intention of disbanding or allowing the Lebanese military to control Lebanon. It's hard to say how many Palestinians still support Hamas in Gaza, but some reports show Hamas less popular now than it was before October 7th. Some questions worth considering. Where is Hamas getting most of its weapons? Qatar? Iran? Where is Hezbollah getting its weapons? Where are the Houthi fighters getting their weapons? We're told Iran. Is Iran funding this entire war against Israel? I suspect that's impossible. Is Qatar funding this entire war against Israel? I suspect that's impossible. Meanwhile, Israel is now doing battle with Iran, Gaza, Lebanon, and Yemen. So who do you think is supporting this four-front war against Israel, other than Benjamin Netanyahu? Can it all be Iran? Can it all be Hamas? Can it all be Benjamin Netanyahu? Now, Benjamin Netanyahu is at war, and he is talking of total war. Total war, a phrase not heard since Germany and Japan were completely leveled and remade into our own image. That's what total war means. Think of Dresden, think of Hiroshima, think of full surrender, and then remaking your enemy in your own image. Do you think that's possible with Iran, Hezbollah, the Houthi fighters in Yemen, or the Palestinians? All of us have a limited understanding of what's going on over there, especially Benjamin Netanyahu. But with all these geopolitical moving parts, you got Saudi Arabia versus Iran, Saudi Arabia Sunni, Iran Shiite, the Houthis Shiite in Yemen versus Saudi Arabia Sunni, Hezbollah Shiite versus Israel Jewish, Lebanon's military, which is a mixture of Christians, Druze, Muslims, Shiites, against Hezbollah, Shiite. You got the Syrian refugees against Hezbollah. Who's to say how much of any of this is about the plight of the Palestinians? How much of this is about helping the Palestinians? Lebanon is home to about 600,000 Palestinians. You got 210,000 Palestinian refugees from the Nakba, the first war with Israel, as well as the war in Syria. There were Palestinians living in Syria, and they have now, because of that civil war, have spilled over into Lebanon. And they are being kept primarily in Lebanon in refugee camps. There are 2.3 million Palestinian refugees living in Jordan. Jordan sides with Israel, at least in the war with Iran. At one time, 600,000 Palestinian refugees lived in Syria. Now, I don't know how many, but I would say most have fled to Lebanon, where, like I said earlier, there are a total of about 500,000 Palestinian refugees living in Lebanon, half of whom are being kept in refugee camps. We're on the brink, or we are at war in the Middle East. We see war in the Middle East. How much of this will benefit the 9 million Palestinian refugees spread out all over the world? Many want to return to Palestine. Some don't. Most of the Palestinians in the Middle East live in what is called a stateless limbo. Some in refugee camps, some are free to live and work among the population in Lebanon or Jordan. In the past, they have been seen as a source of cheap labor, especially by the Israelis. There are many working parts to all of this. Benjamin Netanyahu, sadly, is no different from George W. Bush or Dick Cheney. Not too bright. And I don't know what the answer is, but I know Bibi Netanyahu doesn't have it. I do know when it comes to the leadership in the Middle East, there are no good people in any of this. I don't approve of Saudi Arabia's leadership. I don't approve of Hezbollah's leadership. I don't approve of Iran's leadership or Hamas's leadership. The leadership of Lebanon is pretty much non-existent right now, especially since it's beholden to Hezbollah, which is beholden to Iran. This is a failure, a cataclysmic failure of leadership, especially in Israel. I don't know what the answer is, but I do know Benjamin Netanyahu knows less of what the answer is. And I know to the core of my very being that first and foremost, Benjamin Netanyahu has to go. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has already said this. Bernie Sanders has already said this. Joe Biden is secretly saying this, and I'm saying this. Benjamin Netanyahu has to go. In a democracy, no leader is indispensable. De Gaulle famously said the cemeteries are filled with indispensable generals. World War II ended with Harry Truman as president, not Franklin Roosevelt. Until Benjamin Netanyahu steps down and has to answer for October 7th, we will never really know if this war is an existential crisis for Israel or just an existential crisis for Benjamin Netanyahu. And where are the Palestinians in all this? Who is helping the Palestinians? This is, like I said, a cataclysmic failure of leadership. More on this later on. Donald Trump is doubling down on his hate-fueled racist rhetoric and endangering the lives of black people in Springfield, Ohio. I'm no longer calling them Haitians. I'm no longer calling them Haitian migrants. These are black people, and this is pure, unadulterated racism. On Thursday, Donald Trump once again said, the black people, stop calling them Haitians, the black people have to go. Donald Trump said that black people in Springfield, Ohio have to be shipped out of the country. He promised to revoke the temporary work status for these Haitians and ship them back to Haiti. The black residents of Springfield now live with constant death threats because of this hateful, dangerous rhetoric. These black people were invited by business owners, Republicans, to come work in Springfield, Ohio. And now some of the Republican business leaders who asked Donald Trump to stop lying about the black people they hired, some of these Republican business leaders are now getting nonstop death threats in Springfield, Ohio, because they defended their workers. Again, stop calling them Haitian immigrants. These are black people. This is racism. They don't have a problem. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump don't have a problem with Haitian immigrants. They have a problem with black people. And Donald Trump is promising to ship them back to Haiti based on nothing other than racism. I'll have more on this later on in the show. Campaigning in the key battleground state of Michigan on Thursday, Trump was only able to fill half the room in the city of Saginaw. Now, I keep telling you, America is suffering from a population implosion that's only going to get worse. We're about 5 million short right now. In order to prop up our economy, we're about 5 million short. And it's only going to get worse over the next couple of decades when eventually there will not be enough workers to prop up this Ponzi scheme we call the American economy. We need more people to pay taxes, to pay into Social Security, to pay into Medicare. And, you know, Donald Trump, one of the side benefits of letting more migrants into this country is a lot of them are probably stupid enough to show up to your rallies. Your Saginaw, Michigan rally wouldn't have been half full yesterday if we let in some migrants who, there are plenty of stupid ones who might even end up voting for you. During Tuesday's debate, J.D. Vance refused to say whether Donald Trump lost in 2020. But on Wednesday, he answered the question. A reporter asked J.D. Vance if Trump won in 2020, and Vance said straight out, yes. Now, Vance was the one who started the lie about Haitians eating cats and dogs. I'm beginning to wonder if we can trust J.D. Vance. During the debate, Vance kept saying Republicans need to do a better job at getting the American people to trust their party. Well, you can start by no longer telling lies. Throughout the debate, Vance was like leveling with the audience saying, yeah, I know, we need to do a better job to get Americans to trust us. They don't trust you because you're all inveterate liars. Former First Lady and soon-to-be former Mrs. Trump, Melania, said she supports abortion rights. She says there's no compromising on that. I'll have more on this later. What is going on with her? Meanwhile, a new poll fresh out of the oven this morning now shows Trump only beating Kamala Harris by 2 points in Florida. I'll tell you the state of the race later on, but I told you by October the map would open up and Kamala Harris would be taking the fight to Florida. More on that later. I told you this was going to happen, that Florida would open up. Kevin McCarthy on Wednesday called Matt Gaetz a pedophile, which is the nicest thing Kevin McCarthy has said about Matt Gaetz all year. I think there's going to be a fist fight. Speaking of pedophiles, GOP Congressman Mike Lawler from New York is not a pedophile, but he is a huge Michael Jackson fan. Such a fan of Michael Jackson that at the age of 18, back in 2005, Mike Lawler flew out to California to attend Michael Jackson's trial where he was accused of molesting young boys. And an 18-year-old Mike Lawler, now a congressman, Republican from New York, he was thrown out of the court. He got into the courtroom but got thrown out for the witnesses who were testifying against Michael Jackson. That is a Michael Jackson fan. Well, Mike Lawler, congressman, Republican, Mike Lawler, turns out, was photographed a few years back when he came to a party dressed as Michael Jackson in blackface. And Mike Lawler refuses to apologize for this. So he's in a purple district. Does this help him or hurt him? He's a Republican. I think that's a picture of a Republican in blackface, I think solidifies the base for the Republican Party. Special counsel Jack Smith's new evidence against Donald Trump in the Washington, D.C. election interference trial has been unsealed. Among many of the discoveries, when Trump was told on January 6 that Mike Pence was in danger and might get killed by the angry mob, Trump said, quote, "So what?" Apparently, it's not just Melania who isn't pro-life as well. I think both Melania and Donald Trump are not particularly pro-life. More on that later. 3 women from the Children's Health Defense anti-vax group founded by Robert Kennedy Jr. are now reported to have had affairs with the former presidential candidate in the past year. We are now hearing these 3 women. Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And by the way, tip of the iceberg is also what Bobby likes to say right before having sex. It's just the tip of the I don't know what that meant. Donald Trump on Thursday called Liz Cheney a stupid war hawk who only wants to shoot missiles at people. Because I get pacifist off Donald Trump. That's why he hates Liz Cheney. She's not stupid. War hawk who only wants to shoot missiles at people? That's mostly people of color. I'm going to say she's not a complete war hawk. This is the mop-up for October 4th, 2024. I'm David Feldman, New York. Thanks for finding me. Please hit the like button so I stay in your feed and share this episode. That's the best way to help. And of course, subscribe to my channel, my newsletter, leave a comment. I read all of your comments. Thank you to all of those who came to our debate watch party Tuesday night. I am humbled by the brilliance of my listeners. I really am. It was very humbling. And what is it now? 32 days until November 5th. Are you registered to vote? What are you doing for the Democratic Party? What are you doing? Once again, please subscribe to this channel. That helps. And please like, comment, and share. All right. Hurricane Helene is now the 3rd deadliest hurricane on record, and we fear when search and recovery is over, it will be far deadlier than we even know. So far, as of this morning, we do know that 213 Americans are dead in 6 states, with many more still unaccounted for. The storm hit the coast of Florida as a Category 4. We are now being told that because the waters in the Gulf have gotten so much warmer due to climate change, this storm was much wetter than storms of the past, making it even deadlier. Deadlier than Hurricane Sandy in 2012 and deadlier than Hurricane Ian back in 2022. Wind, of course, is always a problem with hurricanes, but some say this hurricane will be most remembered for its torrential rain and flooding. Western North Carolina was hit the hardest with as much as 30 inches of rain. That is where many of the fatalities are coming from. These numbers are not completely up to date. So I'm going to go over some numbers here just to give you an idea of the magnitude of this storm. Close to 100 are reportedly dead in North Carolina, which got hit the hardest. South Carolina is approaching 40 dead. Georgia, about 25 dead. Again, these numbers, by the time you hear this, will have unfortunately grown. Florida reports close to 20, Tennessee about 10, Virginia about 3. Again, these numbers are what I saw yesterday, so they are no longer accurate, I'm sorry to say, but I thought I'd share just to give you a rough idea of how bad this storm is. The Washington Post reports this morning that fewer than 1% of people living in coastal communities hit by the storm have flood insurance. Flood insurance has become increasingly expensive as the threat from climate catastrophe grows worse. And how much of Tuesday night's debate was devoted to climate catastrophe? We literally have one candidate, Donald Trump, who suggested while he was president that the military should detonate a nuclear bomb inside a hurricane to destroy it, because that wouldn't spread radioactive material up and down the eastern seaboard. You know, the miracle with this craven moron Donald Trump is that only 1 million people died from COVID. It's a miracle that he only killed 1 million people from COVID. And it would have been so much worse, but thankfully the American people elected Joe Biden. FEMA says there are 108 counties in 6 states hit by Hurricane Helene where residents are eligible for what is called the Individual Assistance Program. Some of you listening right now might be entitled to as much as $45,000 from FEMA, possibly as much as $90,000. You should contact FEMA. 700,000 homes in North Carolina's heaviest flooded areas reportedly do have flood insurance, and they get it through FEMA. FEMA offers flood insurance. The government offering insurance. Maybe we should try that with healthcare. Maybe we should have a public option. Politico reports that since 1989, FEMA has given North Carolina $445 billion to prep for natural disasters like hurricane and flooding. That's one state getting $445 billion to address hurricanes and flooding. But I'm told passing the Green New Deal is childish, not fiscally sound, and would only add to our national debt, as opposed to giving tax breaks and subsidies to the oil companies. So we give tax breaks, subsidies to the oil companies who are causing trillions of dollars in damages, killing, I can't even begin to give you the number, but it's childish to pass the Green New Deal. The war between Israel and Hamas now enters day 363. Reuters says 41,500 Palestinians have died in Gaza. That is 10 times the number of all the Palestinians killed in every war in Gaza since 2008. As you're watching, things escalate, although Joe Biden says he doesn't think this is going to turn into a full-on war. It looks like a full-on war to me. But ask yourself, as Israel goes into Lebanon and Lebanon fires rockets into Israel and Iran fires rockets into Israel, ask yourself, what about the Palestinians? Who's helping? Who's looking out for the Palestinians? Not Benjamin Netanyahu, not Khamenei, and not who's ever in charge of Hezbollah this morning. Iranian-backed Hezbollah did join Hamas right after October 7th by firing rockets into northern Israel, where 60,000 Israelis have had to be relocated. But Hezbollah is a Shiite organization. Hamas is mostly Sunni. I'll talk about this in a few minutes. Fighting with Hezbollah for the past year has been limited until last month. Israel intercepted nearly 200 rockets launched by Hezbollah on Thursday. Lebanon's health officials report 37 people were killed, 151 wounded by Israeli airstrikes Thursday that reached as far as Beirut. Israel reports 9 of their soldiers have been killed by Hezbollah fighters since last week's ground invasion began. The skies over Beirut lit up Thursday night once again when Israeli airstrikes targeted the suburbs of Beirut as Israel tried to take out more senior leaders of Hezbollah. Meanwhile, 18 Palestinians were killed in the West Bank as Israel launched airstrikes on a refugee camp in Tulkarm. This is some of the heaviest weaponry Israel has unleashed on the West Bank in recent memory. Fighting continues in Gaza with 100 Palestinians reported dead yesterday. Israel is attempting to get Hezbollah to move north above Lebanon's Litani River, creating a buffer zone that was agreed to by the United Nations after the war in 2006, which ended in a stalemate between Israel and Hezbollah. Israel warned 20 towns in southern Lebanon yesterday, towns below the Litani River, to evacuate so its soldiers can root out Hezbollah fighters as well as Hezbollah missile launchers. 5 divisions of Israeli soldiers are now amassed along the Lebanese border, with 1 division reportedly already in southern Lebanon. A division is roughly 10,000 troops. How does any of this solve the Palestinians' biggest problems? Last week, Israel killed Hezbollah's Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah. Much of Thursday night's bombing strike in the suburbs of Beirut was reported to have targeted the underground bunker of Hassan Nasrallah's successor, Hashem Safadine, who was also Hassan Nasrallah's cousin. Iran's new president said he doesn't want war with Israel, but warned Israel, you must be careful. On Tuesday, Iran fired 200 missiles into Israel to show support for Hezbollah and to retaliate for the killing of Hezbollah's leader, Hassan Nasrallah. It's interesting that Iran doesn't say anything about the 41,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza. The attack on Israel made by Iran was to avenge the assassination of Hezbollah's top leaders in Lebanon, which begs the question, how much does Iran want Palestinians to have a homeland? How much does Hezbollah want Palestinians to have a homeland? How much does Lebanon want Palestinians to have their own country? How much does Syria? How much does Assad, who's a Shiite, an Alawite, which is part Shiite, how much does Assad of Syria want the Palestinians to have a homeland? The Palestinians are mostly Sunni. Hezbollah, Iran, the Syrian leadership, and the Houthis are Shiite Muslims. But Hamas is run by Sunni Muslims. It's not just Benjamin Netanyahu who doesn't want the Palestinians to get a homeland. I don't for 1 second believe Hezbollah began launching missiles into northern Israel after October 7th because they cared about the Palestinians. I guess what I'm saying is maybe it's a good idea to keep religion out of American politics. I think that's the lesson, the biblical lesson from all of this, is keep religion out of American politics. Well, November 5th is days away, literally days away. Like I mentioned earlier, Donald Trump says he will deport all the Haitians living in Springfield, Ohio. A lot of Trump supporters say, oh, he doesn't mean it. This is just politics. He means it. And quite frankly, I'm voting for Kamala Harris, as you know. But I was offended by her dignifying this phony migrant crisis by taking that trip to the border last week and acting like we have to stop these migrants from coming in. Now, I understand why she did this. It's a very stupid country. This is an incredibly stupid country. I understand there's a dearth of journalism, and Americans are easily misformed. But, you know, Joe Biden should step up right now and bring to the White House all the mayors of mid to small-sized towns like Springfield, Ohio, who are in desperate need of migrants. You know, I actually think J.D. Vance and Donald Trump did something good by spreading the lie about Springfield Haitians. They inadvertently forced Republican mayors, Republican governors, the governor of Ohio, Republican business owners in Springfield, police chiefs, to acknowledge that small-town America desperately needs these migrants. It's why hundreds of towns across America are offering anyone who's a citizen or who has papers, hundreds of towns all around America, especially in red states, are offering thousands of dollars to anyone with papers willing to move to what is becoming ghost towns. Without more, you know, I don't know how many times I have to explain this. I know my listeners get this. I don't know why Joe Biden can't use this as a teaching moment to explain that without more people, the economy and our tax base dries up. This is what Ohio Governor DeWine, a Republican, actually said. It's what the business people of Springfield, Ohio, have been forced to say. Republicans are, because of J.D. Vance and Donald Trump's lies, Republicans in Springfield, Ohio, have had to speak truth to the lie that there's a migrant crisis. The migrant crisis is we're not allowing them into the country. And because Governor DeWine, a Republican, because Republican businessmen in Springfield, Ohio, spoke truth to the lie about migrants, they are being bombarded with constant death threats. There's a story about a Republican business owner in Springfield, Ohio, who said, "I love these Haitian workers. They're the best. We need them. Stop." And what did he get in return? Death threats. Death threats. Joe Biden, instead of J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, should be using this as a teaching moment. Vance and Trump inadvertently have created a teaching moment. And Trump and Vance have forced Republicans in Springfield to tell the American people what I've been telling you for years. These migrants are a gift. They are the solution. Who do you think is going to prop up Social Security and Medicare? Who's going to pay taxes? Who's going to work when our population continues to decline? But in a stupid country, racism trumps economics 101. Racism trumps economics 101. It is a very stupid country. And it makes me very angry that I have to explain, not to my listeners, it makes me angry that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the entire Democratic Party feel it's inexpedient politically to explain how the economy works and why we need these migrants. Well, Donald Trump's ground game is not knocking on doors. That's becoming increasingly apparent. It is lawsuits. Republicans are filing hundreds of bogus lawsuits right now in swing states to create the illusion of voter fraud. It's been a year since Fox News settled a defamation lawsuit with Dominion for $750 million. Last week, Newsmax settled with Smartmatic voting machines over the lies Newsmax spread about how voting machines rigged the tabulations and turned Trump votes into Biden votes in 2020. But despite two massive defamation lawsuits, Republicans are filing their own lawsuits in Georgia, calling Dominion voting machines unreliable based on zero evidence. Georgia election officials who are Republican, Brad Raffensperger, remember him? They're calling the lawsuit frivolous. They're saying there's no evidence that Dominion can't be trusted. But that doesn't matter. See, Trump's campaign, through lawyers right now, is laying down a phony predicate. Lawyers are lending false credence to future claims that the 2024 presidential election was stolen. You don't need to win these lawsuits. You just need to file them to create the illusion. This is why J.D. Vance, one day after Tuesday's debate, said Donald Trump won in 2020. This is the plan, and you already know that. I've gone over it. We already have Elon Musk saying that Harris and Biden are busing millions of migrants into key battleground states, fast-tracking their citizenship so they can vote for Kamala Harris. The big lie. The big lie. It's from Mein Kampf. Tell a lie that's so big, people will believe it because they cannot believe that somebody would have the temerity to tell such a big lie. That's from Mein Kampf. Trump isn't talking about hundreds of migrants. He's talking about millions and millions and millions of migrants. This is the big lie that Hitler wrote about in Mein Kampf. And Elon Musk, who doesn't want his taxes raised in 2025, he wants Trump to win, and he'll say and lie anything to get him elected. Where's the proof? Where are these buses filled with migrants? Wouldn't there be whistleblowers? You mean to tell me there isn't a single bus driver or election official who has seen these migrants being sworn in as citizens in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan so they can vote? Where are there are a lot of Republican election officials. Where are they? Well, you would think that Jim Jordan, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, would hold hearings right now to show us the evidence. But no, there is no evidence. So he'll be holding his hearings after the election, when it's impossible or harder to disprove these lies. GOP candidate Larry Hogan is running for Senate in Maryland. He calls J.D. Vance crazy for rejecting the 2020 presidential results. Well, of course he's crazy. Crazy like a Fox News host. Of course he's crazy. That's why Donald Trump picked him. Larry Hogan served as the Republican governor of Maryland, and he said despite Donald Trump's endorsement, he will not return the favor by voting for Donald Trump. The debate Tuesday night between Vance and Walz was pretty uneventful. J.D. Vance, I give him a 5 on a scale between 1 and 10 bomb threats getting phoned into Springfield, Ohio. I think I give him a 5. I think 5 bomb threats were phoned in because of him that night. Given that Halloween is almost 30 days away, I thought Coach Walz was a tad premature, showing up to the debate wearing his John McCain mask. Doesn't he look like McCain? Well, Trump, if elected, would be the oldest president ever to serve. Despite promising to make his medical records public, Donald Trump still refuses to turn them over to the New York Times. According to the Times, I think it was Maggie Haberman who wrote the piece, Trump is clinically obese, despite one of his doctors, Ronnie Jackson, giving him an extra inch of height to make his 245 pounds seem less concerning. He also reportedly suffers from high cholesterol and is a candidate for a massive stroke, not to mention bone spurs. Melania Trump, in a new book, says she supports abortion rights. What is going on here? A month before the election, she has a new book out where she says she supports abortion rights. What's going on? Is she turning on Donald? I mean, you cannot vote for Donald Trump if you support abortion rights. This is the great divide between Democrats and Republicans. What's going on? She writes, why should anyone other than the woman herself have the power to determine what she does with her own body? Well, then, you shouldn't have married a rapist. That's your problem right there. If you think women should have control over their own body, Melania, you shouldn't have married an adjudicated rapist. Melania writes in her new book, Melania, quote, restricting a woman's right to choose whether to terminate an unwanted pregnancy is the same as denying her control over her own body. I have carried this belief with me throughout my entire adult life, unquote. What's going on? Is she angry at Donald that she would write this in her book? Did he do something to embarrass her besides having unprotected sex with a porn star just weeks after she gave him a son? Is she mad at him? Or is the idea, let's court more women voters? Like he doesn't really believe abortion should be outlawed while women are bleeding out in their cars. What is going on here? They're saying after you appoint the 3 judges and take credit for Roe being overturned, the move now, a month before the election, is have Melania say she believes in a woman's right to an abortion. So stupid people say, oh, he's for abortion, after getting Roe overturned and now women are dying. This is possibly 3-dimensional dementia. Maybe he asked her to write this. I don't know. Her book is released next Tuesday. According to The Guardian, Kristen Hawkins, and this is where it gets really interesting. I mean, women are dying. There are about 13 states where women just can't get an abortion, and they're dying because of this. This is killing women. So this is going to be interesting to see how Donald Trump straddles this issue, because he cannot win this election without women voting. And he has alienated the evangelical base. Kristen Hawkins, the president of Students for Life of America, this is a big evangelical ground game. Students for Life is young people who are against abortion, pounding on doors all over America, especially in Florida. She went after Melania yesterday. She told Newsweek, quote, Melania Trump had a chance to inspire in her book, but instead chose to push broken feminism that puts women at war with their own bodies. I guess she prefers women bleeding out in their cars. She says, I won't be buying a copy of the book, unquote. Well, this woman, Kristen Hawkins, who runs Students for Life, she went after Donald Trump last month. You might remember he went wobbly on Florida's abortion initiative. He called the 6-week abortion ban too harsh and implied, as a resident of Florida, he would probably vote in favor of the abortion initiative. And this woman, Kristen Hawkins, went ballistic. She runs a major part of the evangelical get out the vote operation. And she warned Trump publicly. She called him and then said publicly, unless she hears Trump say he opposes abortion and that he will be voting against the ballot initiative, she will not deliver his ground game in Florida. What happens to the evangelicals in Pennsylvania, in Iowa? You cannot win Iowa without the evangelicals. This is why he has to steal. This is why he has to start blaming Dominion. He cannot win the popular vote, and he cannot win the Electoral College. What he can win is an election decided by the House of Representatives. That was the plan in 2020. That is the plan now. Think about this. How could he possibly win when you've got a wife writing a book where she's sounds like Kamala? Meanwhile, CNN reports that Melania Trump wanted to charge CNN $250,000 for an interview about her new book. But CNN said no. They said, we don't do checkbook journalism. And judging by the debate between Biden and Trump, they also don't do check fact journalism. Trump Media's chief operating officer, Andrew Northwall, announced he is quitting. Northwall made the statement of his retirement last week, but nobody heard about it because he issued it on Truth Social, which is true. He quit on Truth Social, but we only found out about it yesterday after ProPublica reported that Northwall didn't actually quit. He was forced out as part of retaliation against whistleblowers who are accusing Trump Media's CEO, Devin Nunes, of mismanagement. Remember Devin Nunes? He was the former Republican chair of the House Intelligence Committee, and during the first 2 years of the Trump presidency, he was chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and after every hearing, he would run up to the White House to let Trump know what the CIA had on Russiagate. Remember that? He ended up quitting Congress and is now being paid $1 million a year to run Trump Media. $1 million a year, even though Trump Media is going to lose roughly $100 million this year. And he gets $1 million a year to lose $100 million a year. And we're going to send Donald Trump to Washington to balance the budget and fix our debt because he's such a good businessman. $8 trillion he added to our debt. Donald Trump left office and was responsible for 1/3 of our entire national debt. Trump Media, his stock closed at $16.17 a share on Thursday. It sold for $72 a share in March of this year. $72 a share in March of this year. Now it's down to $16.17. The Republicans and the Democrats are now doing their filings with the Federal Elections Commission. Donald Trump, it turns out, spent more than he raised in September for the second month in a row. Trump is spending more money on his campaign than he's bringing in. How unusual. Trump only raised $160 million in September and spent all of it, and then more. We know he's not spending it on a ground game. We know a lot of it is going to anonymous shell corporations that we don't know who owns, wink, wink. His campaign currently has $283 million in cash. That's not a lot, considering the election is a month away. Bloomberg reports this morning that Trump, who has completely outsourced his ground game, is relying on Elon Musk to get the vote out. So far, Musk has spent $71 million of his own money for Trump's ground game. And Charlie Kirk from Turning Points USA is running the ground game in Arizona, just barely. And you got your evangelicals. There is no Republican Party ground game for Donald Trump. It doesn't exist. So all this money that's coming into the Republican Party, some of it is on ad buys because 15% of every ad buy goes to his consultants, and that's a kickback. The ground game doesn't exist. It's going for lawyers. It's going for lawyers to get this race settled by the House of Representatives. They're going to try to get this into the Supreme Court and have the Supreme Court say House of Representatives is going to decide this election. That was the plan in 2020. It's the plan in 2024. If the House of Representatives decides this election, because there are more red states than blue states, and each state only gets one vote, Donald Trump wins. California gets one vote. Wyoming gets one vote. Trump needs to hit these swing states hard. He has to. His ego can't handle empty rooms. On Thursday, he only filled half the room for his Saginaw, Michigan rally. So this is why he's relying on lawyers. You're going to see him doing fewer and fewer events because he was humiliated in Saginaw, Michigan yesterday. And he's eventually, in about 2 weeks, it's just, why bother having a rally, spend the money on lawyers? He doesn't want to be humiliated. It's if the rallies are half empty, when he challenges the election results, it's going to look incriminating. Like, look at your rallies were half full. Of course you lost Michigan. Here's the latest on the state of the race. As of this morning, polling averages show Kamala Harris leading Donald Trump nationally by 3 points. These are the polling averages. These are the polling averages of A-plus polls. I know you get a lot of headlines. New poll shows this. Only focus on the averages. So the race in the past 2 days has tightened a little. 2 days ago, Kamala Harris was leading Trump by 4. She was touching her 50% ceiling. She's down to 49%. He's below his ceiling at 46%. He cannot crack 48%. He cannot win the popular vote. He's never won the popular vote. That's not going to happen. The question is the blue wall. Let's go to the blue wall. It is tighter than I want it to be. I wish I could tell you otherwise. These are the polling averages for the blue wall. Harris, up by 1 in Pennsylvania, up by 1 in Michigan, up by 2 in Wisconsin. Pennsylvania, up by 1. This is way too close. But the good news is she has momentum on her side. Since becoming the presumptive nominee, she has taken the lead in Pennsylvania and has never let go of it, according to the polling averages. She needs to do better in Pennsylvania. It all comes down to Pennsylvania. A new poll shows Trump only beating Harris by 2 points in Florida. So, is Florida in play? Only if Kamala Harris doesn't get bogged down in Pennsylvania. I have to admit, I don't like the way things are tightening this morning in Pennsylvania. I'm also seeing some polling for the down ballot race. Democrat Senator Bob Casey is running for re-election. He was running way ahead of McCormick all summer. That race is beginning to tighten in Pennsylvania. If Florida is in play, that means she's not worried about Pennsylvania. But that's the way it's going to go. Once you see Pennsylvania solidifying, she will take the fight to Florida. But Pennsylvania is not looking good. All right, I'm going to wrap it up for today. I'm going to do another show tomorrow, and I'm going to go over Judge Tanya Chutkan's unsealing Jack Smith, Special Counsel Jack Smith's evidentiary filing this week. Doing a show every day at 2:30 a.m. Trying to do a show every day at 2:30 a.m. This was the mop-up for October 4th, 2024. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Thank you to Mila in the chat room, and of course Bob in the chat room for keeping things civil. Please subscribe to my newsletter, and of course this channel. Please hit the like button so I remain in your feed, and of course leave a comment. I read all your comments. Check out shopdavidfeldman.com. We have brand new merchandise. You got to buy a gift for your MAGA moron friends. We have 3 caps, 3 MAGA caps. This is my favorite. It's a MAGA cap. It just says MAGA. And on the back, it says low IQ individual. But he won't see it. He won't see low IQ individual. Or get MAGA for Kamala. I might actually wear this to a Trump rally, MAGA for Kamala, and MAGA moron. If you know somebody who's voting for Trump, get them a MAGA moron cap. They'll wear it. And my souvenir of the 2024 presidential election, it's the worst case scenario map showing that all she has to do is win the blue wall, and that gets her to 270. She's going to win. And she is going to win Pennsylvania. It's tightening up, but she's going to win. Also, my Genghis Khan coffee mug. I like that. What else? Donald Trump as the Predator. And Donald Trump in Edvard Munch's The Scream. And you can pick up some David Ferdman Show collectibles. There's the David Ferdman Show hoodie, the David Ferdman Show t-shirt, and the David Ferdman Show coffee mug, all over at shopdavidfeldman.com. Thank you all for showing up this morning, and I'll see everybody at 2:30 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you.